picture the deadliest men of the Old West, pops into your head. Billy the Kid, Jesse James. We've all been raised on the legends of famous outlaws, romanticized in movies and folklore. But the truth is, the men who racked up the highest body counts weren't the ones looking for fame. They were the forgotten professionals, the hired guns, and the elite warriors whose brutal efficiency made the celebrity outlaws look like amateurs. The real killers of the West operated in the shadows, and their stories are far more chilling than any Hollywood script. The forgotten professionals. Forget all about the quick-draw duels at high noon. The most lethal figures in the West were often methodical, calculating, and hiding in plain sight. Take Deacon Jim Miller. He was a church-going, well-dressed man who didn't drink or smoke. He was also one of the most prolific assassins of the era, a killer for hire who would murder anyone for a price, while some sources claim he killed as many as 51 men. And Miller himself allegedly made this claim before he was lynched. Other estimates are more conservative, placing the number closer to 12 or 14. Unlike the outlaws who courted attention, Miller operated with a cold, terrifying professionalism. He was a true wolf in sheep's clothing. Then there was Tom Horn, a former Army scout turned range detective for agencies like the Pinkertons. While he was only ever convicted for one murder, that of a 14-year-old boy named Willie Nicolets, widely believed he was responsible for at least 17 deaths, maybe more. Horn was a specialist, hired by wealthy cattle barons to eliminate rustlers and homesteaders who got in their way. He wasn't robbing banks or trains. He was a tool for the powerful, a man whose violent skills were up for sale. Most of his victims were shot from a distance, never even seeing their killer coming. What about the legends? So what about the famous outlaws we think we know? Their kill counts are often a mix of fact and tall tales. John Wesley. Hardin was a genuinely violent man who killed his first victim at age 15, while he notoriously claimed to have killed 42 men. Contemporary newspaper accounts attributed 27 deaths to him, and modern historians generally confirm a number somewhere around 21. This is still a shocking number, but it shows how much legends and self-promotion inflated the stories of the West. And Billy the Kid, for all his fame, the 21 men legend is likely just that, a legend, possibly started by his own boasting. Historians now believe he was involved in about 9 killings, only 4 of which he committed on his own. These men were deadly, no doubt, but their fame often overshadows the more systematic and often higher body counts of the lesser-known professional killers. The ferocity of warrior societies, but the deadliest figures weren't all outlaws or hired guns. On the plains, elite warrior societies operated with a level of ferocity that few could match. The Cheyenne Dog Soldiers were one of the most formidable, formed around the 1830s. They were an aggressive military society that commanded a respect similar to modern special forces. Their name came from a legend where dogs transformed into ferocious fighters, and they absolutely lived up to that reputation. The Dog Soldiers were at the forefront of the resistance against American expansion, opposing treaties and fighting to keep their lands. Their tactics were incredibly effective, and they were known for their distinctive war bonnets and the dog ropes worn by elite members. In battle, a warrior would stake this sash to the ground, a vow to fight to the death without retreating until a fellow soldier released him. They weren't just fighters, they were a brotherhood bound by a strict military creed, and their opposition to settlers and the US Army made them one of the most feared forces on the frontier. The unseen wars. The violence of the Old West wasn't just about individual gunfights. Entire regions fell into brutal conflicts that claimed dozens of lives. The Pleasant Valley War in Arizona, which raged for nearly a decade, is considered the deadliest range war in American history. What began as a feud between two families, the Grahams and the Tewksburys, spiraled into a war involving cattle associations, hired guns, and lawmen. The exact death toll is unknown, but estimates range from 35 to 50 people. This was a war of ambushes and assassinations, where neighbors turned on each other and entire families were almost completely wiped out. In towns like Holbrook, Arizona, the violence was just a part of daily life. In 1886 alone, the town, with a population of only about 250, recorded 26 shooting deaths. This wasn't the romanticized West of Hollywood. It was a place where feuds, land disputes, and sheer lawlessness led to a constant state of bloodshed. Often far from the eyes of history, the stories we've been told are just a fraction of the truth. The real Old West was a much bloodier and more complicated place than the legends let on. If you want to keep digging into the history they don't teach you at school, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. Let us know in the comments which of these forgotten killers you found the most shocking. The deadliest men of the West weren't looking for a place in the history books. They were professionals, enforcers, and warriors fighting for their own codes and their own survival. Figures like Jim Miller and Tom Horn killed for money and power, while the Cheyenne Dog Soldiers fought with a disciplined fury to protect their way of life. These are the stories that have been buried under the romantic myths of the outlaws. But in the bloody soil of the frontier, their legacy is a stark reminder that the most dangerous men are often the ones you've never even heard of.